It all had started with those three little noises. Sunny Glade, a young mare out on her own now, had not taken the noises as much more than some tapping in the night at her front door. It was probably just some critter that was trying to get in, so she left some bowls of food and water out for it, whatever the creature was. It didn't work. Every night she would once again hear the tapping. She was a light sleeper, and her ears deathly sharp on picking up sounds, a skill she had gained in her career as a musician. She could literally hear a pin drop. The next night she decided to confront whatever it was, and as soon as she heard the tapping, she grabbed up her flashlight and stormed down and threw open the door. No pony was there, and no matter how hard she looked, she didn't see any traces of any pony in the vicinity. Even the bowls she had left out were untouched. The only thing she could see was a slight indent in the wood of her door, where something pointed had been poking at it. Sunny Glade huffed, and suspected that the culprit was some late-night prankster, or drunk with a mean sense of humor. She decided to make a call on the guards in the morning. But as soon as she had closed the door, the tapping started again. Sunny Glade threw open the door and again was met with nothing. For a few moments, Sunny felt scared. She quickly went back inside and locked the door, chaining it as well. She was sure that whoever was bothering her was a harmless prankster, but she still felt a little safer with the extra lock on. She was a single mare out on her own in an unfamiliar town she had just moved into. It would not be uncommon that she might attract the attention of a stallion with ill intention on her person. She made a firm mental note to call the guards in the morning about this. She went back to sleep soon after, but slept lightly and with her can of pepper spray on her nightstand. The next day she called the guards before going to work. Her band had practice for concert in a few days, and Sunny had to be ready for it. She couldn't let the events of last night ruin her mood or her skill. When she had returned home that afternoon, she smiled at the sight of 2 guards doing an extra patrol in her area of town. She gave the 2 guards a wave, and they to her. Sunny went into her house, feeling confident that the tapping would stop. After dinner and a warm romance novel with a particularly heated engagement between the 2 protagonists that left Sunny blushing, she had slipped into a blissful sleep, content that tonight she would finally have peace and quiet. Sunny gasped. Her eyes shooting open, she bolted up in her bed. It was a sound again. Sunny got out of bed and listened, hoping to hear a scuffle or the guards putting cuffs on whoever sick bastard was tormenting her. That's all she heard, again and again. Sunny sucked in a breath and slowly made her way downstairs, the tapping noise keeping up and seemed to get louder with every step she took. As she drew close to the door, the tapping stopped. Sunny held her breath and waited. And waited. She must have waited for several minutes before smiling and figuring that the culprit was finally gone. The sound of nails or claws raking against her door made Sunny jump, turning around. She rushed and threw open the door and once again saw nothing outside. Her eyes slowly looked to her door now, and she felt her heart grow still and chill ran up her spine. 3 long scratch marks drew down her door, just below the tapping mark. For once, as Sunny shined her light on the marks, she saw the faint red glow of blood mixed in the wood of her door. She looked outside and saw no sign of the guards. Sunny didn't want to jump to any conclusions. Maybe they were chasing whoever was behind this sick joke. Sunny froze, hearing the scratching noise, this time from a tree not far from her home, leading into the local wildlife park. It was hard to see in the dark, and her flashlight beam did not extend far, but she could hear the scratching. Then, the tapping. Sunny quickly slammed the door and locked it. She sucked in a breath and covered her ears. Why? Who would be doing this to her? She'd never done anything wrong to any pony. What reason did they have to do this to her? Was it a sick game? And where were the guards? Was it some sort of animal? Sunny's thoughts bothered her so much that she nearly leapt out of her skin when she heard the tapping noise once more. At her door. Sunny looked at the door, before quickly running upstairs to her room, slamming and locking the door. She threw herself under her covers, threw her pillows over her ears. She hoped, prayed that it would muffle the noise. Sunny didn't sleep any that night. The following day, tired and exhausted, Sunny went down to the guardhouse, hoping to demand an explanation. When she arrived, she saw that the guards were busy, and when she came up to the desk, the pony there took her down to the captain's office. She asked why she was brought down there, and she wished she hadn't. The guards that had been sent to patrol her neighborhood had just been found outside of town at the edge of the woods, their bodies hanging from the trees, mutilated as someone tore them apart. The autopsy was still in the works, but whatever had killed them must have done it swiftly and instantly. The captain asked if she knew of anything that could help with the investigation, though Sunny felt he wondered if she was behind it. She told the captain everything about the past few nights. The captain hummed and rubbed his cheek. "Thank you, that'll be all," he had said before letting Sunny leave. Sunny left the guardhouse, feeling disturbed and sick. More so, she felt worried. What had killed the guards? Was it whatever was tapping at her door? Sunny felt a chill later that evening, and she practically ran home after practice and locked all of her doors and windows. She held tightly at a bat in her closet, wishing she had the bits for a spell gun. And then she waited. An hour passed before finally she heard it. Sunny sucked a breath, but slowly tiptoed down the stairs to her door. Her brain was telling her to run and hide, but Sunny was sick of running and hiding. She was tired, exhausted, terrified even. If this was some sort of animal, she wanted it gone. She wanted her life back. She wanted peace and quiet. Yet, if whatever was out there was dangerous, she did not want to go rushing out. So slowly and with held breath, Sunny stood up on her hind legs and peeked through the door's spyglass hole, and tried to see if she could catch a glimpse of whatever was out there. What she saw sent a chill up her spine and nearly had her recoil in fright. There, outside her door, stood a tall, lanky figure. It was shrouded in the night, but Sunny was sure she could make out a pale, almost stretched like skin on thin, almost bone-like body. The creature, whatever it was, sat crouched on its long spindly limbs that folded backwards. Its front legs acted more like a manticore's arms, and were folded up to allow its long, thin, pointed claws to tap at the wood at her door. Its head was round and oval-shaped, with no sign of ears, and with no hair at all. In fact, the entire creature's body was hairless, and had no sign of if it was male or female. It just sat there, tapping at her door. Sunny watched with a sense of terror building at this creature. She held her breath, afraid that any movement or breathing would alert it to her presence. The creature went on with this pattern, before its head slowly moved to stare up at her door. Sunny fought back a scream as she looked at the oval-shaped head, with nothing more than two big red eyes with no distinct iris, no nose, not even a mouth that she could see. The way the creature stared at the door, it was almost as if it was staring at her through the spyglass. Sunny could only stare back. Slowly, the creature lifted its claw from the door and began tapping out the outside portion of the door's spyglass hole. Sunny screamed, falling back with a thud as she moved away from the door. It knew. It knew she was in here. It knew she had been looking at it. Sunny began to hyperventilate. Rushing into her living room, she grabbed her couch, and with strength she didn't know she had, pushed it against the door as an act as a barrier and rushed back up to her room. She did the same with her bed, pushing against the door. She didn't sleep that night either, only sat in the corner of her room, watching the window and the door, listening to the tapping at her door. Sunny began to cry, begging it to all stop, praying to whatever higher power was there to deliver from this nightmare. The tapping eventually stopped, but Sunny did not move. She just listened and watched. As she looked to her bedroom door, the sound of glass being tapped against brought her attention to her window. Sunny screamed again as she saw the silhouette form of a long, spindly claw-like appendage and an oval-shaped head clawing up her house wall, tapping at her window. The creature stared at her, silent and constantly tapping. Sunny screamed and threw herself into the closet. She stayed awake all night, clutching her bat tightly. When the sun finally rose that morning, the creature was gone, but it had left deeper marks in her door and scratches on her window. Sunny cried that day. She didn't go to practice. She had to leave. She had to get out, to get away from this town, get away from this creature. But she couldn't. She had spent so much money on this house, and her savings were low, and she didn't have the bits to buy a new house, much less an apartment in the city. And even if she could sell her house, who would buy it? Why did she say about the door and the dead guards was already causing some houses that had once been branding for ponies to move into to go back on the market again? One word of the murders had spread into the news. She was trapped here, in this house, this town. And Sunny felt the creature knew it. For days after, Sunny didn't sleep a wink. Her music practice faltered, and she was cut from the band. Every night, the creature would turn to tap at her door, or scratch at it. It never went to the window again, just her door. Still, she had nailed the window closed with boards just to be sure. Sunny tried to ignore the sounds, but always she could hear it in her head. Like a constant companion it was, haunting her mind and driving her crazy. Sunny felt like she was going to lose her mind when one day she heard something, when she had peeked outside her bedroom door to stare down the stairs to her front door. In the dark, she could barely make out the slender, dark shape of a claw-like appendage, thin and spindly, worming its way through her door. It must have made a hole in her door with its constant poking, and now its fingers were sliding into her home. Sunny watched with horror as the claws moved like a snake, its multi-jointed points moving to flick at the lock at her door and push away the chain. The door slowly swung open, and the creature crawled in on all fours. Sunny slammed her bedroom door shut, locked it, and threw her bed once more against the door. Then her nightstand and covered herself in her blankets in the corner and hid under them. The sound began again, this time on her bedroom door. It's been a week now. Sunny is tired, exhausted. Her health is terrible and she can barely focus now. She hasn't left her house in days, fearful to ever leave her room even during the day. Every night the tapping would come back, with scratching in between each rap. Sunny sucked in a breath of the pause of noise, and fear gripped her heart as she heard it. It unlocked her door. The door opened, bumping against her bed. The creature slammed the door against the bed, each time moving it until it was a tiny gap in the door. Sunny watches in horror as the thin creature slowly crawls through the gap, its oval-shaped head squeezing through the gap, its claws along the door. Sunny turns and hides herself under the covers, looking away. She can hear it move. It's right next to her. She could feel its breath. She could feel its spindly claws digging themselves along the covers on her body, making slight ripping sounds on the fabric. Then a noise against her wall, just above her head. Sunny began to cry, not sure what to do. This creature, standing just inches from her, tormenting her with that infernal noise. It never once stopped, even as she cried. She couldn't take it anymore. The noise, that horrible noise! Sunny began to bang her head against the wall, trying to drown out the tapping noise. She kept going through the night, her head, the creature's claws, moving in sync with one another. Sunny stared at the white walls of her new room. The light was bright, but her room was comfy and soft. She tried to move, but found her limbs restrained in her new coat. She couldn't quite remember how she got here. It was all very fuzzy. The guards had shown up at her house, apparently alerted by something. They had taken Sunny away from her home and brought her down to the hospital. Doctors. Yes, there had been doctors. Apparently she couldn't go home. She was sick, they said. They were very nice, though. They gave her a new jacket to wear all the time, and even gave her this lovely room. She was even part of a new community. These ponies were very nice to her, and very cheerful. Some would just burst into laughter for no reason at all. Yes, it was a fine community. And the room. Sunny loved her new room. It was so peaceful, so quiet. And the walls so very soft, almost like snow. Sunny liked the walls. They didn't hurt her head so much. Slowly, Sunny tilted side to side in her new room, humming to herself a little tune, enjoying the soft press of her walls against her head every few seconds. She also thought she could hear something at her door.